This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
We'd love to get your interpretation.
The country we are in today, the capital is Maseru. It is a country that is within a country, if that makes sense. We are in Lesotho, right? The people of Lesotho, a single person is called Masoto. When there are many, it is Basotho. It is also the country, the only country in the world that is 1,000 feet above sea level across the world. It's very high. If you want to enjoy winter, you don't need to leave the continent. Just go to Lesotho and you'll enjoy the cold winters and snow in the country. But the proverb we get from this beautiful country, one who wants everything ends up with nothing. One who wants everything ends up with nothing. How would you interpret it?
Well, I think it's a question of you must also be fair to the rest, so that it's about equity. That they say in Kiswahili mtaka vyote ukosa vyote. So I think that is the same, and you realize the certain, you call them Engeli, Basotho, Masoto. It is like, it is Bantu. Yeah, Bantu. And that's why it has that correlation with Kiswahili. Mtaka vyote ukosa vyote. That is, be fair. Yeah, you just take whatever belongs to you, but also allow others to partake in whatever you're doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Monsieur Poghisio, how would you interpret it?
I think it brings out the African concept of community, of sharing. And so you cannot be greedy in a community to the extent that you want to keep things for yourself and a lot of things while others have. African societies would take care of their widows, their orphans, the weaker people, the people who don't have much. They'll find a way of compensating, and the idea is that all children are taught to care about other people, but see, I think when we got our education, which is foreign, we started being greedy and wanting to amass and so on. We're competing, I don't know with who, so that's a big problem there. Amassing, wanting to own everything, and as you can realize, by the way, that you'll miss friends, you'll miss colleagues, you'll miss the community.
Yeah. Well said. Well interpreted, Asante.
Indeed. And so Kenya finds itself in a very interesting space. And we want to look at numbers already, what we've been told, and rather not numbers, but dates. We've been told as to when the campaign season will officially open. Now, you might be in a different country when you see what compared to what the reality is. So, by and large, we've been told that by the 29th of May until the 7th of August is when the campaign season will open. Now, what we're experiencing in the country at the moment might be totally different from that. But we're looking at the state of democracy in terms of what actually happens, from shutdowns to politics and accountability. And this conversation might spill over beyond the borders of Kenya, especially with what we witnessed over the weekend. But let's start off and look into the situation at the moment. We talk about democracy, whether it was a system that was handed down to Kenya, or whether it was a system that was suggested. How would you say things look at the moment? Bonakiro, are we addressing matters in a democratic manner? And if it should change, how should it change?
Well, we are living under very interesting times, given the fact that the current regime started campaigning the first day they were being sworn into office by doing a lot of damage to the immediate former regime, until many Kenyans almost believed the story that the current president was not part of the last regime. And yet for the 10 years, and the first 5 years, it was almost like a presidency. So if there are any mistakes attributed to Uhuru Kenyatta, he partook in those mistakes because he was in the cabinet. And when you're in the cabinet, it's a clearinghouse. When there are any differences, you're supposed to deal with those differences at that particular stage, so that when you come out of it, there is what we call collective responsibility. And if you do not raise a finger at the time those issues were being canvassed at the cabinet level, then you have no moral authority to tell us that was a regime that you are not part of. Of course, the second part of Uhuru's government, the current president was seen to be an outsider within the government, and therefore, and I think it was strategically done so that anything good was seen to be associated with him, and anything that the public did not really approve of, they made it appear that there were other powers within the system. And of course, he capped it all by talking of the dynasties and the hustlers, something that resonated with so many Kenyans, to the extent that he got a chance to occupy the house at the hill. This therefore means our democracy is not being properly structured. You remember, this is a democracy the way we know it started some time back. Of course, with the Greeks almost having some kind of consultation across the board, and later on that representative democracy, and the formation of the state as we know today took place in 1648, where in Westphalia the countries that were involved, about 13 of them, decided that we shall have common understanding, that none shall be attacked, none will get involved in the internal affairs of any other state. And therefore, there's what we see today as collective security. And that is something that was given to Africa after the colonialism. Then came the semblance of democracy. Otherwise, when you look at it strictly, we are here to get into that space where when you lose an election, it's still democracy. When you win, it's still democracy. We are dealing with democracy as if it is a commodity that is malleable, that I should turn it my way. As long as I'm doing that, it's okay. Today, if you are to listen to the president, you would actually think he's a leader of official opposition, because he's complaining about certain individuals that are hampering him from implementing certain projects. Yesterday, or the other day when he was in Meru, he was saying there are people who don't want a state house to be built in Meru. Really, who has told him that? Why should we imagine a situation that has not taken place? So these are some of the issues that we need. But the most important thing that I feel as a Kenyan is that we must do social reengineering of our nation, because I think the level of hostility that we have today, people are impatient about August next year. Whether there will be change, I don't know. But my worry is that there is so much hostility, there is so much negative feelings about each other, to the extent that you would actually imagine that these are people who have not shared anything in the past. But when you see the last 25 years, it has been just shifting from one side to the other, whether it was what they were calling code, whether it was NASA, whether it was Azimio last year and Kenya Kwanza. There's no political entity that has remained the same for more than 2 elections. It has been morphing from one to the other. And this therefore tells you we are poisoning our people, and I get worried at times when I imagine the next general election.
I mean, Poghisio, we look at where we find ourselves today as a country, and we just need to go back to what many say would have been the best election the country has ever had, and to go back to 2002. And you look at 2002 Kenyans and the election that there was, and Mwai Kibaki taking office, to a point where Kenyans themselves went to the streets and said, we're here to fight corruption. We will arrest police officers ourselves who are corrupt and ensure that justice is actually served. A point where Kenyans with Mwai Kibaki's agenda of kulipa ushuru ni kujitegemea, Kenyans paying these taxes, free education becoming a reality in the country. What has changed so much that we find ourselves today as a country that we're finding there is politics of negative ethnicity that we see in 2026, thinking that 2007 taught us never to go back that route again?
It's our fallacy. It's the thing that brings us always into problems. Is our thinking. We forget so quickly that 2007 ever happened. We forget that it's way back in 1992 ever happened. And subsequently, we forget about it. We're thinking in terms of, I want to become the president of this country, and I want so and so to come with me. And anybody who is opposed to that is the enemy of the people, must be treated very, very strongly, and so on. So you find what we call democracy is lost. What we call a piece of the nation is lost. We worry about how we benefit from being in government rather than how we bring the people together into a peaceful coexistence. Right now, we've taken on a very negative political arrangement. Apart from saying, are you 2-term, 1-term, there is also the heavy mobilization of ethnic communities into political formations. And so what's going to happen here is I'm going to have my cluster, which basically is my community. He'll have his, she will have hers, and everybody. Then we'll come together and say we are a country, and we are a nation.
Yeah.
And so we form a government which is already in itself divided into those tribal things. So why? Because that's the way we started. That's the way we formulated our journey. And when we get there, we start appointing according to those clusters. And so there'll be dissatisfaction in terms of who didn't get anything and who didn't go anywhere. And those who are appointed appoint from their own clusters and so on and so on. So we will never get a national, a face of Kenya. And that's what we keep saying. Look at any government since. We cannot find a face of Kenya, literally. It is who worked with us or which groups worked with us who get appointed, and so on. So we have really started very badly, and that's what's going to happen in 2027. Now, we have no prefect. We have no supervisor who will say to us, don't do that, because we are already in it. And we don't have anybody who will say, let's not go that way. It's a formula that works, what? To the end that you get elected, not to the end that you actually found a nation or you establish a nation. It's just, how do we win this thing? So that's the formula. And especially now that campaigns are on full time. You can see everybody saying we'll block off that side, we'll block off that side, block off that side. How do we then build a nation? How do we build a democracy, as it were? Are we borrowing from ourselves? Is it homegrown? Or is it that we are beginning to borrow bad behavior from elsewhere? I think so. We do have a problem. And unless we start looking at this country as a nation, we will never solve our problems. After every election, we will have issues that again will lead to what has been very common in this country, a very imbalanced way of running the country. And so I do believe that we are the country that the world is watching, that the region is watching. They believe that Kenya is such a democracy. You know, Kenya has what it takes, and so we just need the leader that can come and say we want to build on that. I don't want to go into the past, but there were times when this country set an example. We just mentioned it, 2002,
Sure.
and even after 2007, 2008, set up a very good example. Except for those clashes, the way the economy was run gave us an example that it can be done. Kenya can actually become the example for the region. The region is lacking in good democracy, as defined by our constitution. Yeah.
What does good democracy look like? I think from both of you, we'll start with you though.
Yeah.
What does good democracy look like? And then we can say, okay, well, this is a unifier for a nation state. Under the previous imagination, that democracy meant that the people's voice, first of all, would be the collective authority. But beyond that, what does it look like?
It's what you define for yourselves in your constitution. And in practice, And in our founding fathers, when we got our independence, there are certain things we set out to achieve for ourselves. And the spirit that came that time was the spirit of Harambee. And it means we cared for each other. We worked together to build a nation, and a young nation. And we kept doing that until we corrupted the Harambee itself. It lost its meaning, and we started using it for other things. Then 2010, the 2010 Constitution gives the power, as you say, to the people, the citizens themselves. So we give this Constitution to ourselves, and we define democracy in there. We define what Kenya is. Kenya is. Every time we have a Constitution, we define who we are. In the 60s, 70s, there was a thing called one-party state, de facto, de jure, and then now we became a multi-party state. That's what it should be, a multi-party state. That means it's not enmity about who is in this party or that party. We should collectively have a role. If you are the ruling party, you have a role. But if you're not in the ruling party, you have a role as well. Because you're supposed to maintain the balances and keep everybody in the political system. And so that's what it is. And I'm very opposed to this situation where we find ourselves wanting to form one party, go back to the one-party system, be lethargic to opposing parties and other parties and make it look like those are the enemies, and so on. So I do believe the democracy is true democracy. It's in your culture, it's in your language, it's in your spirit of collective responsibility, of caring for each other, of citizenry that who understands that I am a Pokot, but I am a Kenyan. I am an African, and all those things need to come together, and so. Power is not in the hands of a few. Power is in the people. And those people should be able to remove you. Those people should be able to remove you, either directly or through their representatives. But they should be able to remove you or put you in power. But now, the way we've learned our bad manners is that we'll stop anybody who is trying to come in before, like now we're saying, how do we remove the government of the day? And they're saying there's no way, you can't. But that's competition, which must be a healthy competition. You see, the united opposition right now, united, or I don't know whether they are yet united, but that's the name it's going to. The united opposition right now their duty is to try and remove the current government. The current government, their duty is to stay strong, stay there, and trying to stop this other. But let's do it in a very democratic way. It's not a fight. It's not these ideas of people being harassed, arrested, and things. Those should not happen. You should allow democracy to flow. As people have learned. And Kenyans have become so free now that it's difficult to stop them. It's so difficult to harass them. But that's what I think democracy is. True democracy is.
Bonakira, even as you add up on what democracy looks like, the Constitution speaks of we the people. The power belongs to the people. And with that then, and further explanation within the Constitution on how we will play our politics, how our diversity makes us Kenyans, have we understood the power the Constitution gives to the people to a point where we respect the people and just allow things to work?
Well, I think we still so many notches down the scale. Without going for the dictionary definition of democracy, the most central thing is centered on the people. And that centering on the people means that you must read the Constitution in totality. That even if you are the chief executive of the nation or a certain county, like our governors, you must also realize that that power emanates from the people. And you must allow other institutions within the Constitution that have certain defined power. What do I have in mind? We must allow the executive to exist as is, but in its existence, it must also respect other institutions like the judiciary, the legislature, and constitutional offices like Judicial Service Commission, Public Service Commission, Parliamentary Service Commission, and other constitutional offices, so that we coexist, because it is wrong for anybody to imagine that having certain exposure to education gives you the ultimate authority to do anything. And that's why, without really belaboring the point, at times I find those in power almost reminding us that, I am this. If you believe you are, then you should not remind us, because we know you are. And therefore, anything that you are reminding us is that you are doubting yourself, whether you are what you are saying you are. This is something that I've seen, I've witnessed, especially in the recent past. Without looking like I'm beholden to the late Mwai Kibaki, he hardly said I.
Yeah.
He used the word we. We are going to do that. That is the right thing to do. He hardly used the word I. And at times I used to feel that, why is he not being authoritative? Why is he talking about we in a way that it looks like this is loose coalition of individuals who have the same power? But I now understand him better than I understood him at that time. That there is nothing you can ascribe to yourself, that I've employed 100,000 teachers. Who are you? Have you employed, or the taxpayers employed, because the economy has expanded? The number of schools have expanded. I remember when we were doing our Form 4 exams, we were about 6,000. Those who did those exams at that particular time in the 80s. But today, those who are doing exams run into millions. And therefore means you have to move from the number of teachers that we had at that time, be it for primary, be it for secondary, to the number that is commensurate with the demands of the time. Number two, even the economy, the budget that Mzee Moi left was about 240 billion. Today we are talking of a budget of trillions. This therefore means, with that expanded economy, then you must expand certain services due to the people. And that economy is not expanding from somebody's farm.
Indeed.
It is out of the sacrifices that we incur as Kenyans, that yes, we are giving you a larger piece of a cake, therefore you must give us services commensurate with that particular understanding. Therefore, the word I is something that I find offensive. I find it offensive in the sense that somebody wants to look like is the one who is doling to us certain niceties, as if he controls the atmosphere or the air. So my worry, that is my main worry, and it is my main concern, that I just hope whoever takes over from the current regime is going to be cognizant of the fact that nobody can exist on this space without the support of others.
Let's take a break, and we're going to come back and then ask that question, because the assumption from this conversation so far is that there will be a change of guard come the next general election, and that is it necessary to have that based on what we're seeing today. We're already seeing that there's certain clashes in different parts of the country where this may not be brought out into the fore, but it actually is happening. We'll come back and continue with this conversation. Samuel Poghisio and Kipruto Arab Kiro with us this morning as we have this democratic accountability and folding spaces conversation. We'll be back after this. Don't go away.
This is the Situation Room. This is the Situation Room. This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day.
Everybody was doing the right thing because they knew any exceeding of the powers that were given by that office will meet with certain remedial measures from the authorities of the day. Today, as long as you're on the side of the regime that is in power today, you can do anything. You can say anything. You'll realize being taken to court on a piece of land that is yours, but the title has changed, and you are accused of having duplicate kind of title, when your title is actually the original title pertaining to that particular parcel of land. So when institutions are destroyed, that is when order misses in society. The second issue is if there is an office that must be trusted by all Kenyans, is the office of the president. Because they say presidency is some kind of unifying factor to all Kenyans. No Kenyan should feel I'm not in power because I did not vote for the person who is the president. Because as once in a while he says, even those who did not vote for him are his people. But the practice is different. The kind of things that are being done are different from what is expected. And therefore, if that office is not trusted, then our unity in jeopardy. The third issue that we feel should be done, and I say it now and I will say it again, is public resources must be respected. There must be clear separation of public resources from personal resources. And that is what we call abuse of office. We strongly believe that whoever takes over this country must understand that whatever is yours is to the extent of what you earn as a salary. Otherwise, the rest of the resources are not yours. I've said, and I say it again, that even in America, the president, unless it is a public function that requires, like say, State of the Nation, the Union Address, anything funding, whether it's a party in State House, that bill will go to the president. And from the salaries that he gets, he has to fund that directly. Now, you hear State House is taking 17 billion. Whatever they have been doing, I don't know. Then you hear there are 10,000 teachers who have come, and each one of them is given 10,000. That is effectively 100 million. Is that from his salary? Or is it money that is supposed to be for the state that now has been appropriated into individuals' campaign rally? Because 10,000 people is basically a rally. And you cannot pretend that you have all that money, whether you have 50,000 chicken. It's not enough to fund that kind of level.
Poghisio, I want to ask a question and maybe topple this whole democratic conversation. That can we actually operate in a democracy? Because if we're looking at the very fundamental tenets of democracy, what it is that the people's voice or the people will rule. But we have seen very clearly, especially on the African continent, that not that people cannot rule, but that the individuals in the minority have refused to be subservient to the people's voice. And that we have glaring examples of when somebody took a direct position of leadership and things moved. Bonakira has already given one example this morning of Burkina Faso. Let's look to the southern part of the continent where Namibia has, as of 2025, early 2026, paid off its foreign debt. Namibia owes $0 in terms of foreign debt. Now, that could have been a situation where somebody says, I'm working for myself, or I'm tired of this donkey of this camel on my back, monkey on my back rather, and let's get this thing moving for the people. Point me in the direction of another country at the moment whereby democracy in Africa is actually working. That is it time that we started to say, you know what, this democracy thing, as good as it sounds, is good in our heads, but in terms of practice, it doesn't work.
You've actually talked about it. You finished. let me just add something to that. Our situation is usually made even more corrupt during our elections. Our elections are the thing that starts off the laws of democracy. It is during our elections. We've made our elections very expensive. We make elections money-based, and so we allow people, therefore, to look for those resources for elections in ways that are not normal ways. They have to find money somewhere. And so even when the government prepares itself for election, they have to find themselves, they have to find the money somewhere, and that's normally what's left. Do you know what has become very, very amazing is that If you look at the money spent at elections, if you are to collect that money at the end of the elections, it would run the country for some time. And we've just spent it on elections. So that's where we go wrong. That's where our problems, our clashes come from, and that's where bad governance begins. And we therefore enter into governance with a lot of personal debts, clashes, all those kind of things. You've given examples of African countries being tired of the Western democracy as we know it, and wanting therefore to see if they can test other forms of leadership or governance. And one of the examples that we have seen, when in let's even go back 1971, when Idi Amin came to Uganda, the Ugandans celebrated. They thought they were going to be freed at that particular time. When Museveni came to power, there was a big celebration because you are changing hands. Doesn't mean you're actually changing the way that the governance goes back to the people. No. And so we are removing the people from our governance more and more, distancing ourselves from the people. And that is why democracy has not been successful, because we have no way of bringing people closer. The ruling class lifts themselves up and stay in the sky and leave the people down. And so that's why we come back to say, I'm going to do this for you, I'm going to do that for you, I'm going to do that for you, because that's what we have done. We've classified ourselves as us versus them, instead of really saying we are them, or we are us, whatever it is. So you remember the famous statement that said that we've seen the enemy and it's us. It's really, that's what has become of our democracy. We have destroyed that basic tenet that we are servants of the people. We are actually employed by these people. Even if you are the president of the country, you're actually employed by these people. These are the people who keep you in office, who keep your family in office, and so on, so on. So I do sometimes think you don't have to have a military coup. You don't have to go that way to be able to enjoy effective leadership. You know, when people get completely tired of a situation, and there comes a person, one person, like when Kibaki came on board, who could just, without being noisy about it, change the country, change the economy, and people began to feel what democracy is all about during that period. Now it's the same thing. So if you look at what has happened in Namibia, Namibia is not a military thing. A lady came. She came with a purpose. She had seen all in the UN where she worked and all those. She knew exactly why she was going to be elected. So sometimes I do want to know if you just want to be in power, or do you know and do you have a purpose why you want to go there? Otherwise, we will have to waste time. So changing of guard is not the thing that we want. There must be a change. It's not just for the sake of it. We must have a change of guard that's going to turn our lives around. That's going to bring us to the authority of the people, bring back the people from down to the place where they belong as the sovereign part of our country. That is what democracy should be. And so we have now got the class structure, the class system, where we bring ourselves into a class struggle. You know, we are now raising a few millionaires, billionaires in this country, who now form their own class and leaving out other people, and that is it. It depends on why you've come to power. If you've come to power to make sure that your friends are rich, you've come to power so to make sure that you call yourself successul. Then you have the wrong thing altogether. You're supposed to come to power to make the people successful, to make the people come from. I mean, the ideas. Some of the ideas that we see the government has, the idea is there. I mean, the idea is there. Just implement it. The ideas are there. When I look at the idea that people are going to have subsidized fertilizer so that we can grow food, the idea is good. But now, how do you make that idea the idea of the people? Yeah. And then you have free education, mechanisms, whatever, affordable housing. Those ideas are good. But now, how do you bring the people into those ideas? How do you bring the people to own those ideas? And I think unless we begin to watch some of those things, the level of dissatisfaction in the country can rise to a place where people will prefer any other means of changing the guard. And that's not what we want for this country. So Namibia did not do it militarily. and we're giving a good example of even Ethiopia here. Ethiopia here also, people were determined to pay their debts and remain independent, be able to grow their own resources and so on. And then there are those of us who are still marching in that direction, but it's becoming slow for us to go. So I do hope that the idea of sovereignty of the people can be brought back to our country, and let our people begin to feel that they are not far from the leadership. The leadership should embrace people, bring them up to speed, so that we don't have people who are begging, people who are poor, who need real food, and we cannot provide.
Yeah.
Our priorities need to be on the people themselves.
Yeah. But Akira, and bringing the people to leadership, to be part of government, one would say is well stipulated in the law through public participation, where people get to speak to government on their aspirations so that you carry them with them and you implement that which the people have prescribed upon themselves. This is that opportunity where one would say that the patient has prescribed the medicine to themselves which they think would work, right? But we see that even that opportunity that the Constitution has given the leadership of the country to take advantage of, to bring people on board, has not been looked at as perhaps the medicine that is there. That it is always about what I want, I will shove it down your throat, and you have to take it because I have said so. And one would then ask the question, as we continue with this political chess game that we see today, and segregation and splitting of people along the ethnic lines, can one then get to power after those fault lines have been crossed and say that and convince those that he alienated during the campaign period, even when they formed government, that then I can bring everybody together? If from the word go, you split people, what does that do to the peace, to the unity of a country that should march together?
Well, there are a number of things that happen, but the most important activity in leadership is the capacity to listen.
Mm-hmm.
And when you are listening, you must listen keenly and interpret the aspirations of the people in a way that you move in the direction they wish. But the ability to listen is very scanty to many leaders, including our president. He does believe that because he has reached a certain level of education, therefore the rest who have not aspired to that level. And you know, as you progress, when you are in primary, you do more than 10 units.
Yes.
When you go to secondary, the number is reduced. When we used to have from 5 and 6, you could take about 5 subjects: a general paper, subsidiary maths, and other principle. Then at the university, you reduce, just like that. So at the level of PhD, it's actually a narrow area of research. And I just want to remind him that the more you research, the more you aspire. Because even there is post-PhD, what they call postdoctoral level of education. As you go that, you specialize in a narrow area. Like for him, he was dealing with some animal called Sitatunga and the land degradation in my former constituency, or my constituency, because I still live there. And this therefore means he knows a lot about Sitatunga. But we are not Sitatungas. We are human beings who have a free will given by God, not even by the Constitution. So the most important thing in a country, even the countries that we've mentioned, Namibia, Burkina Faso, even during the days of the late Thomas Sankara, and even to a certain extent, I see the young man in Botswana trying his best. But at times he overtalks, and I get worried about such people. So my worry is that it takes one person to bring sanity to a nation, because Kibaki 1, we are operating at 96% our own revenue collections. 94, and only 6% came from other countries. And we rolled out free primary education and the stimulus because we believed the more you take money to the people, the more you allow that money to be in circulation. And also money started going to the banks because initially a lot of money was staying in mattresses because there was a bit of corruption. But when it is your money, that's why you and I, Dennis, we are crying. There's no money. Because whoever owes me or owes you takes long to pay you. And therefore, that money is trapped somewhere because it's not genuine money. Because if it was genuine, it would have gone through the bank. And therefore, there would be money in circulation. Now, the most important thing is not even the cabinet. If I was to be president today, I will inherit the same cabinet and allow cabinet ministers to work. And there will be a lot of difference. What am I saying? The fish starts rotting from the top, from the head. And this therefore means change of leadership will start with the president himself.
So if you see something not going right in the country,
Yes.
or many things, or whatever the case may be, and if there has to be constant pushback, like what Kenya is currently facing at the moment, where the president of the nation has to answer people. When people say, why are you always traveling? And he says, well, they're my legs, not yours, and I can do what I wish with them. And all I've come to do is change my shirt, and I shall be back on a plane to go back again.
Yes.
So when you see that kind of answering back and forth, and if you say that if you would use the same cabinet,
Yes.
because the fish starts rotting from the head,
Yes.
then is the response to change the head?
Yeah, you change whatever is rotten. Yeah, whatever has gotten rotten, you change that. And you inherit the same people. I know there are many good ministers. Today I would not even change half of them if I was to be president. I would run with them for about 1 year. And you see those who will fall by the wayside.
So you're saying that folks who are not working,
Yes.
not working today, are not working because of the influence from or lack of the chance to actually get things done because of the
Yes.
influence from the top?
Yes, that is it. Let me give you a simple example. Under the constitution, the constitution that I operated with as minister, many parastatals, the chairmen were appointed by the president. The CEO went through certain interview, and you are given 3 names for you to use your discretion. And you are not bound to say number 1 must be appointed. Even number 3, the 3 names you are given that discretion. All the directors or board members, that was the purview of the minister. Today you hear ministers saying, so-and-so is a director in my parastatal, but I don't know how he came in. Only to be told he came from State House. In fact, at times I feel government printing machine, the government printer, should be in State House because they seem to operate at will. Remember, they were printing some documents at midnight during the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua. Now, the most important thing is, the point I wanted to make is, if it is parastatal A, State House or OP will ask you for 2 names. So-and-so and so-and-so. Then the president will pick one of them. This therefore means you are given that freedom, that even if it is the appointment is done by the president, but you are given 2 names, so that you have confidence that you are running a ministry that people respect you. And if you feel a chairman of a certain institution is not doing well, you give your recommendation to the president, and the president would say it's okay. That person would be removed, and somebody else will be put there. So that when you are a minister, you are a minister. But today, many of these ministers cannot say anything. Remember the former Minister for Education. What was the name?
Which one?
Machogu.
Okay.
He had to wait up to midnight to say schools are not on tomorrow.
Yeah.
When some people from Busia traveled all the way. When they're in the streets, they are told, no, there's no school tomorrow because of 1, 2, 3. Why? He was looking for authority from the president to do that for the whole week from Thursday up to Sunday. So it tells you nothing moves unless Ruto is in town.
Yeah.
Time doesn't allow us to go beyond that because, I mean, it's very clear from both of your assertions today that the change needs to come.
Yes.
Kiprus Arab Kura, former minister, as well as Sam Poghisio, former majority Senate leader, as well as minister, has been with us this morning. Thank you. From the end of this conversation, it seems that from both of you, there needs to be a change, and that change needs to be at the top.
Yeah.
Thank you both for joining us in the Situation Room this morning. Looking forward to more conversations. Good morning, everybody. It's 8 a.m.
Thank you.
The latest news from around the world. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your